Hi guys, I'm back again today, and today we're checking out history summarized, and this is Wales. So this was another buy me a coffee request by Paul, so thank you for your request, and I'm really eager and excited to check out Wales. Like I said in the anthem video, national anthem video, I don't know anything, nothing. I only know the flag, and there is a country that exists that is called Wales. That's it. So, welcome to the clueless reaction. Let's do this.
The history of the British Isles is an uneven affair, to put it mildly. We're familiar with how Scotland and Ireland drew the imperial short stick and enjoyed the pleasure of being sat upon by England, but perhaps the shortest stick of the bunch was drawn.
No, I don't. I don't even know that short stick. And now we have to learn about the shortest stick. So we still have something like some gaps. There's still gonna be gaps. But anyways, let's go.
By Wales, who is often left out of the discussion entirely. And while I'm shocked that anybody could gloss over the country that is a freaking dragon flag, Wales has been tragically sidelined from the historical narrative of the Isles, and I will not stand for it. Wales has impressively and improbably maintained a distinct Celtic culture since the very start, and it is far too cool for historians to be doing them dirty like that. So, to see how Wales did the hard carry for Great Britain's culture for 2,000 straight years, let's do some history. A proper understanding of this whole Wales business requires us to go way back in British history. No, too far. Yeah, there we go. See, Celtic culture in Britain is the foundation of what will eventually become Wales, but these guys aren't the easiest to get a handle on. The Celtic, or Gallic people, stretched out from Central Europe towards Gaul, Iberia, and the British Isles, but also went southeast towards the Black Sea, and one problem for us loser historians is that it's unclear how, and even kinda if, they settled in Britain. There are competing theories for who, when, where, and why, ranging from the standard migration models to the possibility that very few Celts actually settled in Britain. Logic being that overseas trade was key to the Bronze Age economy, and Britain's tin deposits made them a big export hub. Since tin is half the chemical structure for bronze, that meant people from all over Europe and the Mediterranean came to the Atlantic coasts to get their bronze on, and this includes our Celt boys. So it wasn't mass migration that brought Celtic people to Britain, but rather local Britons who buddied up with Celtic traders by speaking their language and copying their swirly Latin art. So according to this meme model, the local Britons thought Celtic culture was LOL so relatable XD that they adopted it all up and down the Isles. Whether or not this model is fully accurate, it would account for some weird archaeological and linguistic discrepancies in the traditional migration theory, and it also foreshadows the prestige placed on bards and literary prowess by later Celtic cultures. Because it's equal parts cool as all hell and existentially horrifying that a culture can basically by itself take hold of an entire population by willing itself into existence. This would be our first indication.
That is so, like, amazing. Maybe it's because we don't really shine a light on Wales. So Wales is like, hey, you know what? We're just gonna create our own light, okay? You guys don't want to put the spotlight on us? Just wait. We will make our own spotlight. We don't care. You guys do your thing, we'll do our own thing. We will create our own thing, our own spotlight, or our own sun, right? If you don't want to share the sun with us, we will make our own sun.
Entire population by willing itself into existence. This would be our first indication that Wales has big eldritch energy. Other civilizations, however, would not follow this lead because the Romans found that culture was best delivered by spear point. While on their way to fill out their pan-imperial punch card and get their 10th new province free, Roman emperors in the mid-1st century campaigned into Britain. Most Roman settlements were in the south and east, where all the easy agriculture was, and although goods, coins, and Roman legions did make their way west, the cultural and linguistic impact on so-called Britannia Secunda was only slight. Perhaps the most transformative thing the Romans did in Wales was leave, because the post-Roman migrations from Central Europe into Britain totally upended the island's demographics. Frustratingly, it's nigh impossible to show this kind of thing clearly on a map, which is why turbulent centuries in history with slim documentation make blue a sad boy, but here's the gist. We know the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes from northern Europe arrived and displaced many of the Romano-Britons, but over in the west there was also an influx of Irish Celts coming in to settle. This age of migration nations was much more overtly migratory than the Celtic arrival in Britain in the millennium before, though, again, the native Britons didn't really leave. After a few decades of raiding gave way to much more peaceable settlement, most Britons were happy to start speaking Germanic and make friends with their new Saxon neighbors than to up and book it for the hills. Still, the end result was the confinement of native Celtic culture to the far west in Wales and Cornwall. And that split explains why it's called Wales. It comes from the Germanic word wala, meaning foreigner, while the Welsh call it cymru, from the Celtic word for countryman. It's also in this migratory shuffle that the legend of the Romano-British King Arthur first pops up, though it'll be a couple centuries before he's labeled as Arthur, or a king. Honestly, the whole early medieval period in Wales has this pseudo-mythic Age of Heroes vibe to it. Good documentation is blah, what else is new, but the oral traditions that will later become the core of Welsh epic literature get their start in this era. So, as far as we can tell, what was going on in medieval Wales? Well, isolation from Germanic majority England was good for preserving a unified Celtic culture, but the politics were much more...
Dragons are a big deal in Wales. The red dragon, the Dracouch, represent the Welsh Celtic people, while the white dragon represent the Saxon people.
Various local princes vied for hegemony over the many disparate realms, but succession always proved their undoing, as sons would squabble and big kingdoms would shrink back to where they started. The princes of Gwynedd and Powys were the most successful of the bunch, and as a result, King Offa of Mercia built a dike across his border in the late 700s to try and keep Powys out. But that worked about as well as any frontier walls have worked throughout history, which is to say...
What is this movie?
Barely. So despite the best attempts of Saxon kings and the Irish Sea, Wales wasn't entirely cut off from the rest of the world, as they had gotten on board with Christianity thanks to the missionary Saint David back in the 6th century. They might not have been the most consistent of pen pals with the Pope in Rome, but they were mostly on the same page. Wales' early medieval history of relative chill was aided by England's near-constant Viking tire fire, which pushed Conquer Wales way down the to-do list. But that changed when our old pals the Normans kite-shielded their way to conquering England, because suddenly this new Norman England had a much stronger army and they proceeded to point it right at Wales. Norman lords pushed into Wales along the northern and southern coasts and made some, but not a lot of progress. Since Wales was made of small principalities, the Normans could play the Welsh off each other, but then all of their gains were only incremental. Not so easy as winning Hastings and calling it a day. While casual war was the standard for the next 200 years along the borderland marches, elements of Anglo-Norman and Welsh culture made their way across. The princes of Gwynedd, Powys, and Deheubarth picked up some Norman political structures, and England learned about Welsh longbows the hard way. Although Wales didn't form into a unified nation, they did get close a couple times. Llywelyn Var fought off his family members to become Prince of Gwynedd and proceeded to bap all of his enemies out of the way so that he could assert his hegemony over Wales. He also tried to streamline the rules for royal succession so that every interregnum didn't immediately explode into a civil war. He then pushed eastward into the March and defeated King John of England so handily that his barons made him sign the Magna Carta to stop being such a royal knob. Llywelyn's military...
I love the comedic relief-ish in this situation because it's history, it's all serious and all. But I love that it's also put in a very funny, lighthearted way so that you're not like, you know, how do you call it? You don't get bored. You have something.
Barons made him sign the Magna Carta to stop being such a royal knob. Llywelyn's military successes weren't quite matched by his grandson, also Llywelyn. Though he did the biggest prince in Wales routine again, he was defeated by England's King Edward Longshanks. The next year, in 1283, Edward pushed into Wales and stomped out the princes, using the old Norman trick of building a buttload of castles in newly conquered territory to stop the locals from getting ideas. In a twist that should surprise no one, England needed more than a few of these to do the trick, so Wales has the highest castle density of any country in Europe, with over 600 built and 100 still standing today. That is, and I really cannot stress this enough, a stupid amount of castles. That's the density equivalent of 23 castles in New York City, with a less impressive but still formidable 2 castles just in Manhattan. Good lord!
That's
In any case, the
so
post-conquest period was a weird century for
fascinating.
Wales. Suddenly they were subordinate to England, but soon they got tied up in the Hundred Years' War, and then everybody had plague to contend with. So while it was a real wacky time, it was also surprisingly indicative of the history still to come, as England goes about its business while holding a pillow over Wales' face, gently shushing them and hoping nobody notices. Forgive me for speedrunning through the next several centuries, but I've already done the England plotline once, and that was painful enough. A century after a thwarted independence uprising in 1400, Wales had the good fortune to pull a reverso and put a Welshman on the English throne. The man in question was one Henry VII, notable ender of the War of the Roses, and he set up Wales for greater integration with England and way more rights than they had before. This all became official via the Laws and Wales Acts passed by Henry VIII in the mid-1500s. He drew up county borders, standardized laws, gave Welshmen equal status as Englishmen, and gave Wales representation in Parliament. And as
I don't know why I didn't think this was happening or happened. Like, I thought it was fairly equal when it comes to maybe England at least, or the English people. But I didn't think there was, like, inequality back then. Especially here, of course.
Equal status as Englishmen and gave Wales representation in Parliament. And as an added bonus of Henry's hop over to Protestantism, the Church translated the Bible into Welsh. This protection of the Welsh language coincided with a new interest in medieval culture and ancient literature, and language became a defining feature of the Welsh identity. While all of this was going on, the political story of Wales got folded into the larger English narrative, what with the Spanish Armada-ing, the union of the crowns of England and Scotland-ing, and the creation of a globe-spanning empire-ing. Despite playing second fiddle, maybe closer to fourth, in the history of the British Empire, Welsh literature was rising in prominence during the Romantic movement, thanks in part to some shiny new editions of classic works. Specifically, Lady Charlotte Guest compiled and published the 4 branches of the Mabinogi, and doubly translated too, so Welsh and English readers could both enjoy the medieval folklore. In contrast to Scots Gaelic going kaput and Irish Gaelic suffering a enjoy the medieval folklore. In contrast to Scots Gaelic,
adjacent Scots in the latter medieval period, Scots in the Germanic.
Going kaput, and Irish Gaelic suffering a steep decline in the 1800s that they're only recently bouncing back from, Welsh literature and poetry came in clutch for the long-term endurance of the language. But while the Romantic era was in full swing, so too was the Industrial Revolution. So all these fancy new machines and choo-choo trains needed coal if they wanted to do anything, and Wales happens to have a crap ton of the stuff. Southern Wales swiftly became the mining capital of the empire, and while coal and slate may have been big business, they were also hellish jobs to work. So Wales ended the century more urbanized than it had ever been, but the Welsh probably weren't so thrilled about why, especially as British attitudes towards them soured and Wales got the dingy reputation shared by all other regions doing heavy industry. Although the 1900s started out pretty rough, what with the coal mining and a nasty spell of discrimination against the Welsh language in schools and work, Wales turned a corner after the Second World War. Industry diversified and politicians campaigned for more regional autonomy and protections for the language. The Welsh Language Acts of 1967 and 93 elevated Welsh...
Wow, I'm so clueless because I didn't think there was this. Like, maybe because, obviously, right? Like, I feel like I'm gonna say something that will throw me into jail. But, because we are focused, especially me, like, everybody has their own issues, right? Like, every race, country, and so on. So we're all focused on our issues. So I didn't even think that the others, like, there's some other people out there that are also going through their own, like, they're fighting for their own justice and equality and all that stuff. Like, obviously the black and stuff like that, we are still fighting for that. But at the same time, we also neglect to remember that there are other people as well, maybe even like Asians, Caucasian, Europeans, like everyone. We're also still fighting for our own equality in different situations, right? Maybe some more than the others, but like I never knew this took place. I thought like, in my head, obviously because of the lack of knowledge in my head, I thought like every Caucasian country, or every, I don't know how to put my words into correct form so that I don't get cancelled from the surface of the universe. I thought, I'll just say Caucasian. I thought like every Caucasian or Caucasian countries didn't have to go through this. Yeah, that is my ignorance. But thank you for educating myself, right? So let's go back, right? This is crazy.
Protections for the language. The Welsh Language Act
Like
of
if you had to fight for your culture and your language, that is insane. It's as if like, oh, English is the superior language, and oh, Welsh is just gaga. Maybe that's why I had the thought of like Welsh not being Welsh. It was actually English with an accent. You see?
Politicians campaigned for more regional autonomy and protections for the language. The Welsh Language Acts of 1967 and 93 elevated Welsh to on par with English, granting bilingual signage, the right to use Welsh in legal proceedings, and Welsh language broadcasting. So now a third of Wales can speak the native language. And in 1999, Wales, and also Scotland, but that's a different story, got its own national assembly, later promoted to Parliament. And that's Wales. Far too often sidelined in the history of the Isles, Wales has an enchanting historical vibe the other three countries lack. Maybe it's the ancient Celtic language and the dragon flag getting to me, but Wales feels older, like you can wander slightly too far off a hiking trail and stumble into Narnia. As anybody who knows Welsh can confirm, it just sounds like the language dragons would speak, and I know better than to disrespect the dragon lords. Thank you so much for watching. If you want more,
English. It does, because a while ago I was like, wait, are you speaking English or some, chanting some spells? I don't know, but that was a really fascinating. I like this type of things, right? Because I am a person who really gets surprised and amazed by little things, just because I don't know, I like that process of like finding out things. I am a curious cat. I am a Leo, so if you care about those shenanigans, so I'm a curious cat. So I'm always like, oh, what is this? How do you do this? Why this? Why? How? So this sort of things, I'm like, what is happening? What is life, right? So I'm so glad that the world is so vast, that we have so many things that we don't even know. And that is my purpose of existence, is to find out and to know and to learn. So if there is mistakes that I say or do, please correct me in the comments, and also let me know the videos that will help me even know more. Yeah, this is amazing, and thank you, Paul, again. Where would I have ever known this? I don't have any Welsh friends. They don't teach this over here, so thank you. You guys are amazing. If you like the video, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.